Mike was foreman on the Crossbell Ranch. Dale Court was manager, and we moved up there about a year before he was killed. And he was killed in 1970, so I guess we moved in '69.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived on what they call the Tucker Place, which was near Beulah Dam.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And what was Mike's job up there?
he was ranch foreman. He was kind of in charge of day-to-day work, telling the men where we need to move cattle, and if they were going to sell something, they gathered them, and he was just a ranch foreman.
Did he see Mullendore pretty regular?
Yes, not daily maybe, but EC would come by, and a lot of times he'd just come by to visit, not even really mention what Mike's job was. He's just kind of like a friend, and but he talked to him pretty often. EC was always on the go someplace.
I understand that Gene Mullendore really liked Mike also.
He did. After EC was killed, he told me that with EC gone, Mike was the closest thing he had to a son, and he really relied on Mike, and it was hard on Mike to not be able to do what the old man wanted him to, because he was at that time working for the receivers. He had to take orders from them. Made it tough, but that's one reason we moved away from the ranch, because he couldn't please two bosses who wanted two different things. Anyway, it was we considered him a friend, although he was the boss. He was a friend. On the day he died, Mike had been driving him around some while Chubb was not working for EC. But the day he died, he came by about 8:30 in the morning and said he'd hired Chubb back. Chubb was driving for him, and they picked Mike up and went to visit Mary Jane Kilby on business. When they came back to the house, they left, and I helped Mike move some cattle, and we came in just before lunch while he was unsaddling horses. He came in the house and visited with me, and he had been there while we were gone and visited with my daughters a little bit, and he was complimenting me on what nice children I had, and he had a wedding ring in his pocket. He had taken it off. He said that didn't this mean a lot? He said, Linda has sued me for separate maintenance, so I sued her for divorce. And apparently he had gotten his divorce papers served on Linda, but he was trying to avoid having her papers served on him. He didn't want to be served. I don't know what difference it made, but it meant a lot to him.
This was during lunchtime of the day of the murder.
Yes. He sat down with us while we ate lunch. He wouldn't eat lunch with us. He drank some tea or something, and Chubb at this time was parked right at our back door, which the driveway went right by the door of our utility room, and he was parked there in the car with the motor running, and Mike wanted to invite Chubb in for lunch, and EC wouldn't let him, and so we visited while we were eating, and Mike said, well, I'm going to go see if Chubb wants a glass of tea. or something to drink, and he said, "You leave Chubb alone. He's doing right. He's doing what he's getting paid for." He said he needs to be right where he is. He was not. He had hired Chubb back, but his tone when he talked about him was still a little antagonistic, maybe, or like he wasn't being real buddy or anything toward Chubb. It was just was not happy with Chubb. He didn't say that, but that was the impression he gave. He was thanking me for letting. I didn't let Mike. He did what he wanted to, but for not fussing about Mike having been driving him around the last few days and running around with him, and Mike had been spending time with him for several days and driving him around and hating every minute of it because he was a cowboy and he wanted to be on a horse. He hated driving. Anyway.
Is that when EC pulled his ring out during that conversation?
It was before we sat down to eat. He was leaning against the cabinet talking to me and just kind of waiting on Mike to come in the house.
So he was visibly upset towards Chubb Anderson. To you?
Yeah. He didn't mention Chubb. He was upset because Lyndon sued him for divorce. And I don't know why I guess he hired Chubb back because he needed a driver. He was drinking and he didn't drive much by himself, and he was used to having Chuck at his beck and call to drive him and carry his briefcase. And I know when Mike carried the briefcase, when he was driving him around, he said it had a lot of cash in it and a gun. And so I suppose that's what was in it when Chubb was carrying it around. But
did you talk to Chubb any during that period?
No, I didn't.
Did Mike go out and talk to Chubb out in the...
I don't know. He'd been with him that morning. Chubb was driving him when they came and they went to see Mary Jane. But, well, I'm sure Mike walked out with him. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. So, anyway, that evening, my brother, Frank Adcock, and his wife, family came over, and Dale Court and his family came over, and we played cards. And I don't know what time they left, probably 10:30 or so. And
you're talking about Dale Court's?
Dale Court and Frank, yes. Frank lived up by Sedan, Kansas, so he had a good little drive. And no, he didn't at that time. I think he was on Drummond's ranch at that time. He was. Yeah, I got that wrong. Anyway, our phone was out. The ranch, that part of Mike's salary was they paid utilities, and they hadn't paid the phone bill, so our phone had been disconnected for several days. And so we didn't hear about them being shot until early the next morning. And Kent Green came over and knocked on the door and rang the bell, whatever, and he was very shaken, and he said that EC and Chubb had been shot, and we thought they were both dead until he wanted Mike to come over and bring a gun. Said Mr. Mullendore had sent him over to get Mike, wanted him to bring a gun and come over and just come over. When he got over there, he found out they wanted them to look for clues, look around the grass, see if they could find any footprints or where anyone had been. And the only thing they found was where Dale had, Chubb had gone over to Dale's and back. But,
Those were the footprints in the dew that
correct.
have been well
Yeah,
spoken
there was a
about.
heavy dew that morning, and that was the only evidence they could find of any other person being around was that where he had run across the grass.
To Dale
Gone
Court's
Dale's-
house.
Dale Court's house.
Mm-hmm. Did Mike and Dale ride the fence lines?
I think they did. Ride the fence, and he was gone all day. I don't know. It was such a traumatic time, and I, not having a phone, I was very nervous. So I don't know. I've got a little log here that I wrote. I think it was about 9 o'clock. I went over to Dale Court's house, and there were lawmen every place, and I didn't stop at the Mullendor's house, of course, but I went over to Dale's, and they were just so shaken. And his wife was a friend of mine, and I stayed about probably an hour and a half, and Dale asked me if I would come back tomorrow and be there with Shirley, because so many people were coming in and out, and she was nervous. So I went back, and the next day, Shirley Snidely was there. She was married to one of the ranch hands, and she stayed a little while and left. But they were already clearing a road up to the hilltop where they were going to bury you, see. And Dozer had to make a road to the gravesite.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a bad time.
Back to EC's mood a little bit when you saw him at noon. Could you put that in a few words? How was he just upset, or was he? What was his mood?
Well, he was upset, but he was kind of trying to make light of it, you know, like, what did you give me for this ring? You think it's worth $25? Said, didn't mean anything to, apparently after being married all these years, it didn't really mean anything. I think my impression was that he thought when you put a wedding ring on, that was for keeps, and this was going to be over.
Mm.
So it didn't mean anything in the first place.
He didn't want the divorce.
No.
It was Linda that was filing the divorce.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she had good reason. She was living in a terrible situation.
Had you guys heard anything about rumors before the night of the 26th between Linda and Chubb?
I don't know. I don't remember. If I did, I passed it off as just gossip. I really don't think I did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that after EC was killed, that was when most of the rumors were, people started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that EC's dad had a lot to do with that,
Mm-hmm.
because he was very vocal about his opinions. I went over to his house while EC was there as a corpse, and I took some food, went in the back door, and they insisted that I go through and speak to Mr. Mullendor, and he was in there, and he was sitting in a big chair waving a big pistol around, and he was practically blind, and he was talking on the phone, and Linda was upstairs, and Kathleen was upstairs. They said they were napping, the maids did, and he was telling us, I don't know who he was talking to, but he said if Linda had been here where she's supposed to be, that wouldn't have happened. I guess he was trying to lay blame on her for him getting killed too. I don't know.
Do you know why Chubb was fired the week before?
Not for sure. No, I think that. The story was that Gene thought that he was messing around with Linda.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure. And the fact that he wanted to rule the roost probably had something to do with it, and they liked Chubb and they relied on him, and he wanted him gone.
They trusted Chubb.
Sure, they took care of their kids. He drove them back and forth to school. He took them out, taught them how to shoot. He was their caregiver, pretty much. I mean, they had other household help, but he was the outdoor guy, swim at the pool with them and take care of them. They loved Chubb. They still do, I think. They have very fond memories of Chubb.
But you don't know why EC was upset with Chubb that day at lunch?
Well, the reason that I assumed he was upset with him, that his dad had convinced him that something was going on between Chubb and Linda, and apparently he had mixed feelings about it, or he wouldn't have hired him back. But maybe he wasn't completely sure. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I never asked personal questions.
I've noticed the book you have there. What is that?
This is actually, it's just a daily log that Mike usually wrote what he did for the day. It was his book, and he'd kind of stopped writing in it, and then when things got so traumatic during that time, starting a week before EC was killed, when he was getting Mike to ride around with him and everything, I started writing down some things and making notes. It's just a daily log, and I didn't write very many days, but I think I started on September 19th and finished on September 28th, and then left out a couple of pages. I wish I'd written more.
Well, it's very interesting. It sounds like you have great fond memories, though, of
Yeah.
the Mullendorf family.
I do. I kind of, Nina told me one time I was as close as a sister to her, and although I don't see her, I think a lot of Linda and the kids.